Hey, my name is Courtney, and I am a publishing coach and mentor and CEO of Leader Publishing. Now, if you're watching this video today, chances are you are interested in writing a book and potentially self-publishing your book in the process, which is amazing. I have self-published quite a few titles on my own. Here are some. And then I work with clients as well to publish books and journals. So I have a really good understanding of the process, and there's a few things that you need to make sure that you're doing along the way. So let me see if I can get some of those things out and clear for you. So grab a coffee and pretend that we're just out at a coffee shop and we're just two friends out enjoying a coffee, and I'm going to tell you the process of self-publishing. So the first thing that you need in order to self-publish is your content. So you can't self-publish a book until you have your manuscript. Now, there are a few different things that you can do to utilize manuscript writing. In addition to finding the motivation and inspiration in order to get your manuscript written, you could use a couple different pieces of software. I'm going to recommend two. So one of them would be just your basic Microsoft Word or Google Docs, which is a great way you can work across different devices and work on the go and anywhere you want. And that also has some spelling and grammar built into it, spelling and grammar correction software built into it. So that's helpful as well. And then you can also do things like add your footnotes and end notes and those kinds of things in there. So that's like the most basic way that most people will write their manuscript. It's just like Pages on Mac or Microsoft Word or Google Docs online in Google Drive. Another tool you may want to consider, and this is really only if you're kind of in the early stages because it would be a lot of work to transfer things, is a platform called Readsy. Now, Readsy has a lot of other tools and resources, so just that website in itself will be helpful for you. But Readsy, you can actually start a manuscript in there and it will organize things by chapters, and it has some pros and cons. There's a couple of little weird details, like it won't let you add a footnote, but you can add end notes. But if you're like, for me, that's kind of I don't really like that. I like having footnotes at the end of where it is noted, not at the end of the book. So there's a few like weird little things in there, but Readsy is a really great, exceptional piece of software, and it's a website. You can also find editors and designers and like typeset support on Readsy as well. Again, a little bit limiting. You can get it edited and then utilize their free typesetting system, but it's not customizable really. There's just like a few different templates. But what's nice about that is it's also cross different devices. So if you went to the website and started typing there and use your computer for the most part, but then one day you were somewhere else, you could log into it on someone else's computer and still access your work, similar to a Google Drive situation. So these are just really for manuscript writing. There are other things that you can utilize, like manuscript templates. If you want to utilize a template inside Google Docs, you can, you really just have to find the time to be able to write and get your manuscript written, because you can't go anywhere else in the process until you have your manuscript written. So that's step number one. Once you have your manuscript written, you need to have it edited. I suggest having it edited more than one time. So I have an English degree and love writing and spelling and grammar. And so most of the time when I'm writing a manuscript, it's relatively clean, but that doesn't mean that I don't need to have someone else edit it. There are things that I just am not aware of, that I don't know, that are not done properly the way they're supposed to be done. And so depending on your writing ability and skill, you don't have to be a perfect writer in order to write a book, but you definitely want to make the investment in some strong editing services. And I suggest more than one editing round. So you'll have the first person who edits for you. Maybe you find them in Readsy. You can also find editors in Upwork or Fiverr. Have somebody do your editing. You can also reach out in any place, like go on Facebook, see if anyone offers editing services. And it is going to be one of the biggest investments in your self-publishing journey. Design comes in very closely afterwards, but editing is a big investment, and it's an important one. So don't shy away from a maybe four-figure investment in editing, and perhaps having that done a second time as well. And I also recommend you have a third proofread. So what you need is your manuscript formatted into what looks like a manuscript. So organized into chapters, have a contents section, have your forward, preface, dedication, introduction, chapter 1 to however many, have it organized and formatted well so that it's easy for your editor to read. Generally, unless you find someone who is editing and formatting, generally the person who's editing it is not going to be really formatting it. It's going to get formatted into an actual book format later, but make sure that it's pretty organized and clean before you send it to whoever is doing your first round of editing. And plan for a relatively large investment, one of the biggest in your self-publishing process for sure. So once it's edited the first time, depending on who you work with, they may send you back a copy if it's in like Google Docs or something like that, or if it was Microsoft Word or Pages, they may send you back a copy that shows every single edit they made. So it's going to show, if they changed a sentence and what they changed it to, and you now have to approve all of those adjustments. This is just something that generally happens, with you having so much control over the process. They know that you want to see like what they did to it, what they changed, and make sure that you're okay with it. Sometimes they leave comments if they're not sure about something in particular, or sometimes, like my editors have sometimes left comments like about something I wrote that they said they liked it or they laughed at it or something like that. So chances are you're going to get your manuscript back, and now you have a little bit more work to do because you've got to go through and check every single comment that they left. If you have a different experience, that might come up, but that's just what I experienced. And so you're going to want to go through that and check, and now you're getting it to a place where it's a very, very clean manuscript. At this point, I do encourage you to consider having it done a second time with someone else, another set of eyes. And it may be a little bit of a lesser rate because it's not a full entire edit. It's almost like a proofread. But I would encourage you to think about having it done a second time, or at least having someone read it for you that's not you, a friend or someone who knows English relatively well. They're not an editor, but they enjoy reading, and they wouldn't mind having another look at it. And then I do encourage you to get a proofread done too. The proofread, I personally wait until it has been typeset and laid out first, and then I have someone proofread it. And this is supposed to be like a proofread would be a rogue comma is missing here, or there's a misspelling of a word. It should be very, very small, the amount of errors that the proofreader is finding at this point. And again, you're going to want to invest in somebody to take care of this for you. That's a whole part of self-publishing. It's a lot of figuring out on your own, trying to determine, get a quote from a couple people. If you're not sure, but it's going to be an investment, editing is going to be an investment, 4 figures probably or more. Could be multiple 4 figures depending on how much editing work your manuscript needs. If you are a strong writer, it may not take them as many hours, but hourly rates for editors can be anywhere from 60 to 75 plus. And some editors also do like it's this one lump sum. You pay a chunk of it first and a chunk of it at the end. It just depends on who you find. I found success on Upwork and a few other independent editors, but just do your research and see who is available to do what for you. But just know it is one of the biggest investments. Once the editing is done and you feel like it's in a good place and it's ready to move to the next step, you can also utilize Upwork or Fiverr or outreach just in your community to find someone who does the layout, which is also called typesetting. So it's sort of like interior design of your book. So you're going to want to contract somebody either on an hourly basis or a project basis. And this will probably be it may not be 4 figures, but it'll be a relatively high amount depending on who you use. This is the thing I mentioned in Readsy. They have the potential to do this. If you've been writing in the Readsy platform, they can actually format it for you. It's just a little bit boring. There's not a lot of customization. It's not as if you can pick fonts that you want. You know, often it's common to have your cover design and your interior sort of mirror, or at least pull elements from the cover in terms of fonts inside your typeset. And Readsy limits you with that. So if you're hiring an independent contractor to do your typesetting, your interior design, they would have the ability to go, okay, well, what font do you want to use? If you don't have your cover done yet, that's okay. They can start laying it out for you, and fonts can be changed later if that's something that you want to incorporate. So the typesetting is the layout part, and they should be giving you at the end of it a file that is print ready for, most notably, Amazon KDP. They should be giving you a file that is print ready and ready to be uploaded into Amazon KDP. So with this file, that's generally a PDF file, you can also, this is where I said I like to have the typeset or the laid out format that I give to someone to proofread, because they can catch any last, the last 1% of little errors there could be and get that corrected before you actually print and get a proof copy of your book. So now you're working on somebody with the typeset. At that time, I would probably start looking for a cover designer. Depending on who you work with as a cover designer, again, Upwork, Fiverr, these places you can find contractual work for cover designs, or reach out to your own networks. A cover could be anywhere between $500 to $1,000. It depends on who you're working with, and it depends on if they charge per project or if they charge per hour, because if you are someone who's more picky, then the revision process could take longer. Obviously, you want to get to a point where the cover is the one that you love and you feel really good about it. But I encourage you to remember, try to work with someone who's done covers before, number one. And number two, this is a book that you're going to have forever. And anytime you're writing a book, it's not likely that's going to be like the only book that you ever write. Or if you were really unhappy with the cover, it's not like you can't adjust it or do a revamp, or do like a revision, do a second edition. It's not like it's forever carved in stone and you can never adjust it again. For me, I designed my own covers for the first 2 journals that I did, so they're very boring. Then I had somebody do my book cover for my first full book that I actually wrote. And my brand has completely shifted and changed since I wrote that book. And my biography as an author and a writer and, business owner has completely changed. The title of the book no longer matches my old brand. And I'm just, at this point, I'm just leaving it as is. It's still available on Amazon. It still generates sales on Amazon. I am not worried that it doesn't perfectly align anymore. In my next book, it will align with my current branding and my current messaging. And if that changes in 5 years, oh well. Do you think Brene Brown's author biography is exactly the same 10 years ago, from 10 years ago, as it is now? She's had her publishing house actually redo some of her books, her original books, to be updated. It's not something that you need to worry about at this moment. So I'm going to encourage you to not be too picky, but also to press for, adjustments and changes that you want. Go prepared with examples of book covers that you like when you're contracting a cover designer. Show them, create a Pinterest board, send them your Pinterest board link. These are the covers that I really like. If you're planning on using yourself in the front cover, there's an example of, that's me, myself on the front cover. Also up here, we have another, that's the author of the book on the front cover, but not all of them have authors on the front cover. So if you want to incorporate a photo of yourself on the cover, that's great. Being able to connect eye to eye with your reader is a great idea. It's not necessary though. Something like this can be a little bit more, it's a little more ambiguous and can connect to far more people because they have no idea who, what the person might look like. So that can be a good thing too. But you definitely want to make sure you have some professional photos for your about the author, which could be on the back cover and also on the inside of your book. So make sure that you're planning for that, investing in that. If you want your photo inside the book with the typeset, you have to give it to the typeset person, and it has to be a high resolution photo, like from a photographer. In terms of the front cover, it can go either way. If you're someone who wants to connect with your readers by having your face on the front cover, someone like Robin Sharma does this a lot, but you'll see like Brene Brown, often it's just words on the front, and that's totally fine too. It's obviously more about the content that's inside than it is about outside. If you are going to have your photo on the front cover, make sure it is a very clear, high resolution photo. And ideally, not always, because in both these examples, you don't see the eyes necessarily of the person, but it is great to be able to see your face if you are going to be the author that's on the front cover of the book. So cover design can be, it really depends on you and how many revisions you want. It can be a quick process, or it can be a process that takes a little bit longer. And it will be, again, something else that you're spending your investment on, but for good reason. We know we say don't judge a book by its cover, but we know that a lot of people do. So do some research in your target demographic. Look on Amazon, look on Barnes & Noble, look on Target, look on Indigo's website, like look anywhere where there are book sales and search the categories that you suggest or that you are planning on using for your book, and see what other books are in those categories and what the high sellers are. And you may want to consider, looking at that. I'm not saying you have to copy or take inspiration from any of them, but just have an idea at least of what best-selling, top-selling, high-ranking covers are in your genre, in your categories. What's next after cover? So what you need for Amazon KDP, if you haven't investigated this yet, it's the direct publishing, the back end of Amazon essentially, and that is the platform in the system that allows you as a self-published independent author to upload your files and sell your books. So what you're going to need is the final typeset file from your designer who does the interior, and your final cover spread, which is a PDF jacket. It's the book cover laid out as if you've opened the book and you're seeing the front cover. So generally it's the front cover on the right side and the back cover on the left side, and then the spine, and it's all one file. So that's what you need to upload. You've got to create an account on Amazon KDP. I think it's kdp.amazon.com. Create an account. You're going to have to put your information, your banking details, things like that into your KDP account. Don't be weirded out about that. That's how you get paid once your book is live and you start to collect royalties. So you create your account, put in all your information, and then you can go to your bookshelf and create a book. So that's what you're going to need your 2 files for. And obviously you need other things like exactly what the title is, what the subtitle is. If you don't have an ISBN, there is a company in the United States that you can purchase ISBNs from. The name is escaping me right now, but if you just search ISBN in USA, I'm sure it will come up. I can't remember the actual name. In Canada, you can go to Library and Archives of Canada, or just again, search ISBN Canada and get a free ISBN assigned to you. I recommend going that route. You can get a free ISBN assigned to you with Amazon KDP, which is fine to do, but that just means that your book has an ISBN associated to Amazon only and can't necessarily be distributed in expanded networks and be available on other places like indigo.com, barnesandnoble.com. So I recommend you source your own ISBN and utilize that when you're uploading. Other things you'll need when you go into Amazon KDP to actually load your book and get ready. You're going to want to have an idea of when you plan to launch. You're going to need to select 2 categories that your book fits into. I suggest you pick a category that is in line with your topic, but maybe a little bit more unique than just the general plain category. So for example, this book here, Momfident AF, I think wound up in self-help, personal growth, personal success, something like that. You want to avoid just picking self-help general because there's so many other books that are in that category. And yes, you are going to be in a category that has a lot of other books that you're technically competing for when you launch your book and go live with it. You want to try to be in a little bit more of an obscure category versus being in a super broad category, because then you're more like the big fish in a small pond versus small fish in a big pond. Some things are out of your control. When I launched Momfident AF, I got #1 in almost all my categories, definitely in hot new releases, in lots of motherhood categories as well. There's multiple different categories. Even though you select 2, there's a bunch of them that it filters down into. So you're in all of them all the way down. And then there's also hot new releases, most wished for, most gifted, movers and shakers. So you have the potential opportunity to get ranking and make the charts when you start launching. And what you need is for a lot of people to purchase that book on your launch day and the days following. The chances are high you don't have to have hundreds of thousands of people, but you definitely need a surge of people. You need as many people as possible to purchase that book from you on the day that you decide to go live. But this book in particular came out at the exact same time, and I didn't know this. I maybe could have done better research, but Jessica Simpson's book, Open Book, came out. And I think in one of the personal growth or one of the categories, I just could not get past her and get number 1. I was number 2 for days in that category with Jessica Simpson for obvious reasons. She obviously had probably millions of people were purchasing that book. And so I just couldn't get ahead in that one category. But all you need to get on the bestseller ranking list is to be on the top 100 of at least one of the categories that you're in. Obviously, number 1 is a coveted spot and one that would be amazing to hit, or even, the top 10 would be an incredible milestone to hit. But just to get on and be called a bestseller, an Amazon bestseller, you have to hit top 100 in at least one of the categories or subcategories that you're in. When you go to do your book listing, you can also work on it and save the draft and continue to work on it and save the draft. So I'm telling you that you need these things just so you're prepped in advance. But when you go in to do it, it's not as if you have to memorize what I've just told you. It's going to ask you for all these things that you fill out. And then you can save the draft and go do your laundry and then come back and fill out more information later. You can also do your research as you're going. So if you don't know about categories yet, it's fine. When you get to that place, you're going to be able to go through and look at every single category, depending on what genre your book is in. It may be in fiction, it may be in nonfiction, it could be a children's book, so you're going to be able to go through and look at that. And you just want to pick the best categories that you think suits your title and is a little bit, broad, maybe a little bit more unique and obscure, which is going to help in terms of ratings and rankings later. So there's 3 pages, I believe. There's the initial information, then there's content, and then there's a pricing page. Remember, save as draft all the way through will keep your book where it is. Save and continue. If you're ready to move forward, you can use that button. Just to recall that if you go through the actual full stage and you publish your book and you ever go back in to make a change, that save as draft button will unpublish it if you click save as draft. So save as draft is really just for before you publish. After you publish, don't use that draft button anymore. That's just a small tip. So you're going to go through and you're going to have to write a book description as well. So be as clear as possible. If you've got keywords that you've been thinking of in terms of search engine optimization, like if this book is called Self-Love Club, for example, so self-love would be a great keyword. They give you 7 spaces to put keywords in. If you can use self-love as much as possible in your book description, that's even better, because the more your title has it, if your subtitle also happens to have it. This book here is a great example as well. Keep It Tracker, Fit Tracker, Fitness, Wellness. Her subtitle had wellness, fitness, and mindset in it. So those were 3 keywords. Her description had those three words several times throughout the description. You have a lot of space to write a description, so write as much as possible. Don't just take the back cover description and pop that into the description. Write more. Go and expand. You can Google search this, like how to write a better Amazon book description, but use as many keywords as possible and use up as much space as you have there. There's a lot of characters you're able to use, so make sure you're using them. Other things that you're going to need, obviously your 2 files. It's going to allow you to upload them, and then you're going to be able to preview it. Now, be forewarned that even though your designer has sent you the final file and your interior person, whether they're the same person or, 2 different people, they may not be perfectly set up. Depending on how much experience your designers have, there could be adjustments that still need to be made. So don't stress if you get to the part where you're uploading your files and now suddenly you're getting an error message and it won't let you approve because something is off by 2 millimeters and the spine size needs to be adjusted and all of this. So don't be Don't be too worried if that happens. You're just going to need to either take a screenshot or communicate with your designers. This is the message I got when I tried to upload. Can you fix that for me? Obviously, you don't know much about sizing preferences and adjustments and spine calculations, but the designers should. If they've done book covers for Amazon before, the designers should have a clue what you're talking about. So just know that there could be another revision required when you get to that stage. Another thing I didn't mention before, but the sizing of your book, and this is necessary for when you book your cover designer and your interior designer. Common book sizes, 8.5 by 5.5 inches, I believe, 6 inches by 9 inches. Those are two of the most common. This one is 8.5 by 5.5, and this one is 6 by 9. I recommend you pick one of those most common sizes. Depending on how many pages and how many words and how big or thick you want your book to be, you could get away with the book being a little thinner if you go with 6 by 9 versus 5.5 by 8.5. This is the most common book size, 5.5 by 8.5. So that's probably a good size to select. You can pick things like if you want this to be glossy or matte. I actually don't have any glossy covers up there, I don't think. No, they're all matte. Either way, the matte is kind of like a velvety finish, which I really like. And the gloss would have something like this reflection on it, just like, a lot of books are gloss cover. So you can pick that. But you're going to need to communicate what size you're going with to both your interior and your cover designer. So keep that in mind. I would recommend, if it's a regular book, 8.5 by 5.5 or 6 by 9. If you're writing a journal or a workbook, this pink and purple, not the one in the front, pink and purple are 8 by 10, like paper size, which is great for a journal or a workbook. It's harder to see, but this black one up here is actually 7.5 by 9.25. So it's a little bit smaller than an 8 by 10. And that's a little bit of a thinner journal. So it's a little bit more compact than a thick and not as big as a paper size. Now that I've told you about sizing, should have talked about that earlier. So don't be alarmed if you have some adjustments that need to be made after you upload your files. That's common. You're just going to communicate that, save it as draft, wait for your changes to come back, and then you're going to try to upload the new files. In my experience, generally, it's usually just one, if there is a revision, generally the designers can fix it with that one revision, and then you're good. The final page is going to be picking your distribution. So whether you're in Canada or you're in the United States, you're going to pick which market is your primary market. For me, it's Canada. You could be in the States. There's also like UK, Australia, France, Mexico. There's a ton of different places. So depending on where you live, you're going to pick the market that is where you think you're going to sell the most books. So for me, it's US and Canada, but Canada is where I sell generally the most. And then you can also decide if you would like to be part of expanded distribution, which would be the possibility of having it in other places like Indigo, Barnes & Noble, etc. I put all my books in expanded distribution because obviously you want it to be in as many places as possible. And then you're going to pick your price. And when you pick your price, it's going to give you an idea of what your royalties will look like as you sell copies. So if it's a book that's $24.99, depending on how much it costs to print that book, which can be anywhere from $3 to $5, maybe more if it's a thicker book, it's going to show you a sort of calculation. If the book's $24.99 and the print cost is $5, it's going to tell you that the royalty is this amount, you get 60% of it, and it will come up with a total of like an approximate per copy royalty. KDP has plenty of reports for once your book is live to track your sales. But to be honest, the royalties, I feel like they could be better, but they kind of have you. Like, there's not really another place that you can go where the platform is an international platform that is well known around the world. The ease of not having to take care of inventory or fulfilling orders or tracking shipping or doing any of that. The convenience of if this book gets shipped to you and it's damaged or the pages are folded over or there's some printing issues, the person goes back to Amazon and gets that corrected. It's not on you. So there's plenty of good things about utilizing the print on demand system. But it's not as if you're making, you're not making a huge profit margin per book because Amazon takes their cut in addition to there being a print cost. You're still going to generate royalties per copy. And it could be anywhere between $8 and $12. It depends on how thick and how, what the print cost is of your book. That's how thick and how big it is. And it depends on what you charge. So if you price your book at $24.99, obviously that's going to generate a higher royalty than if you price it at $19.99. but it's really up to you. When we're self-publishing books, unless you have like a ton of audience already that's super engaged, this is not like an immediate moneymaker. It is, there's many benefits. It is a credibility tool. It can help you leverage if you are a coach or have another business and you want to utilize this to get people into your kind of warm market. It can create opportunities, open doors for you. Obviously, yes, you can generate revenue. You'll probably start to make a return on investment as soon as you start launching, so long as you're promoting your launch quite well. So it's an evergreen revenue source for sure, but it's not as if, you know, with making $10 a copy, it's not as if you're making like millions of dollars. But over time, if you gain, you know, more credibility, maybe you publish another book and you start, it's like the momentum thing. People also really like if they find an author they love, if they have multiple books, because they like to then, oh, that person has another book and another book. So it's definitely a great opportunity and one that I obviously strongly believe in, but it's not, I don't want you to go into it with expectations like, oh, I'm going to make 7,000 is possible. Should have said more like $100,000 with my launch. With making 10 to 12 bucks per copy, it's not likely that you're going to do that right away, unless you have a huge established audience already, in which case you could overnight have a really successful launch, a best-selling launch campaign, and make a ton of your money back, cover your return on investment, all that good stuff. So the only other things to consider is that's like the background, like the logistical stuff. Obviously, you want to plan for, depending on how well prepped your audience is, for a bit of time to do the marketing to prepare for this launch. You never want to just, you know, silently work on your book and then all of a sudden now it's launched, everybody go get it. Because what you need, especially for a bestseller campaign, what you need is to have a surge of orders on that day or two, generally like over a day or two period, but it is an updated hourly list. So you need as many people as possible. If you picked September 1st, let's say, as many people as possible to purchase on September 1st, that's what's going to bump you up. So you're above Jessica Simpson in your categories. Jessica Simpson may have 2,000 orders every single day consecutively. So that means you might go above it one day and then come back down and she's still up there, which is fine. As long as you've made it on the list, you take a picture of it, you screenshot it, you save it, you get a bottle of champagne, you celebrate yourself, you are a best-selling author. So you may not stay at the top of the charts permanently, but the whole point is to drive it up for that day that you're launching your book. So marketing that launch day is something you want to plan for yourself using social media marketing, email marketing, working with someone to help you with your marketing. That's worth considering, because if you're writing a book and you don't have any type of business online and you've never marketed utilizing social platforms or digital marketing before, you want to consider that, because otherwise, how are you getting the word out? Unless you are the CEO of a business that has emails going out to everybody on your staff, you want to consider how are you going to get your message out? That's all that marketing is. So that, yes, you're working on your book, and yes, you may be at the phase where you're getting things loaded to KDP and you're creating your book in your bookshelf, but I would encourage you to not just hit publish my book until you've planned at least, at minimum, 3 to 4 weeks prepping people that is coming, maybe creating some graphics, making people aware, like an awareness campaign that the date we need you to order is October 1st, etc. And just preparing for that and doing as much as you can, digital and old school traditional marketing. Whether it's organic marketing or it's paid advertising, you can do it whichever way you feel is going to be the best. But you definitely want to give yourself some time to promote your book and not just go, okay, here it is, everyone, go get it. The last piece, this is before your launch, but the last piece would be, once you have your files loaded, before you publish my paperback book, you can request printed proofs. One of my copies up there, it's hard to see, but the printed proof is the last step. You can request an order up to 5 copies at a time. And this is the last review The front cover has a little band on it that says not for resale. So this is not a book that you're going to then, put somewhere, sell somewhere, hand off to someone else. You could potentially, in terms of your marketing strategy, hand out some of those not for resale copies to influential people in your community who are willing to help you on launch day. That would be one strategic method, is if you order the 5 proof copies and you hand 4 of them out to people that you know are going to help you and who are willing to help you. The proof is for you to make sure everything is lined up properly. The front and back cover work well. The spine looks correct. There's no like bleed over of the spine onto the front cover. The ISBN number on the back is where it's supposed to be and not covering anything on the back cover. You're checking the interior of the book. Does the font look okay? I've had books come back that the font that we used, the thickness of it was just a little bit too thin. I forget what that's called. The thickness of it was too thin. So we had to change the font on that one. And I wouldn't know that from the digital version or from the ebook version, but I knew it when I got the print copy, opened it up and went, oh, this is a little too fine. We need to increase the thickness of the font, or we need to change the font. So those are things you can't know when you're reviewing your digital copy and you think everything looks good. That's why you order proofs, in order to have that last look. And hopefully, fingers crossed, there aren't many things that need to be changed, but sometimes there are things that need to be changed. So this is just, we're doing the last check to make sure everything looks a-okay before you're actually putting it out into the world. And then what's the last? Then, so you can order your proofs. If everything looks good, you can move forward with your launch and get everything ready. The one thing I forgot to mention, if you want an ebook version, you need to communicate that to your designer, interior, exterior, that generally the person doing your interior design, if they've done book covers or book layouts before, they may say to you, do you want an ebook, so that I can format it accordingly? And probably you're going to need a cover from your cover designer that's not the full spread, but is rather just the front cover, like what you see on your Kindle. So those are things to consider if you're planning on doing an ebook as well. You can do a pre-order of your ebook, but you can't do a pre-order of your hard copy using just Amazon alone. You can do a pre-order of the ebook, because if the manuscript, let's say you accidentally didn't upload the manuscript properly or something, you can have a pre-order for the ebook, because if that goes wrong, there's no cost associated with a wrong copy going to a customer. But if that happened with a paperback manuscript, somehow something slipped through and didn't get approved properly or something like that, there's a cost associated with the paperback. There's no cost associated with ebook. So you can do your ebook on a pre-order and then have the book come out on the day that that you're looking for. One thing I will say about when you push the publish button, Amazon asks that you attempt to push the publish button 72 hours in advance. And that may or may not happen. Sometimes it's 72 hours in advance, and sometimes it's 2 days, and sometimes it's 1 day. But either way, you want to make sure that 4 days before your date that you want to publish, that you are pushing the publish button. And to be forewarned, that means it could be available 2 days before the date that you've been saying is your launch date. I always just tell my clients to relax if that happens. And if someone messages you and says, your book's available, I can purchase it, that's okay. Tell that person, if they wouldn't mind, can you wait until launch day for me? Some people are so keen and so eager that they'll see it and they purchase it. I had that happen a ton, where they were like, I was able to find it and I bought it. And I don't want to say, thanks a lot. Like, I was waiting for you to buy it on Valentine's Day. That was my launch day. It's great that they're purchasing it. It should help start to increase your rankings, but try your best to just get everyone to purchase on the day that you've selected as your launch day. So I think that's it. I think that's a good introduction to how the process works for publishing. Now, you can do this whole thing yourself. I've done it multiple times. It takes more time and a little less investment in order to DIY the process. If you are completely overwhelmed and you're like, I don't know how to do that and I want someone else to do it for me, which is what I would do at this point because of how busy I am now. I work one-on-one with clients. I don't take everyone who's interested, but I do have a book proposal form. So if this has been informative, but you have no interest in executing on all of those things and you would rather outsource it to someone who has done it a few times before, lots of times before, and that's what I do, is I help one-on-one clients, and I also publish collaborative books, then you can go to my website, lead-her.com/publishing. And there's a book proposal form there. You just need to fill out the book proposal form. I review applications on a monthly basis. And if I'm accepting space, I may reach out to you and just say, hey, I do have space to take you on as a client. But if you want to DIY the process, people do it all the time. I did it. I figured it out. It's when I had more time to figure things out versus now I don't have as much time. So this would appeal to me if I were, had a different business and wanted to publish a book. I would be my own client. So that's it. Overview of the self-publishing process and some things that you need to know if you're ready to go into the publishing process. If you have any questions or need anything or want some more information, then feel free to reach out to me or find more information on my website, lead-her.com. That's it. Thanks for watching.